Good morning. Welcome to the Peorian. I'm your host, Paul Gordon. By now, most Peorians know of the Pere Marquette Marriott Hotel project planned by developer Gary Matthews, president of EM Properties. The project is moving forward, according to the developer, as he and the city recently reached a new redevelopment agreement to keep it going. We should see some construction get underway soon. This project will include total renovation of the Pere Marquette, which would have resulted in Matthews closing the historic hotel for about a year, had the current owners not locked the doors last week. They did so because of the high cost of keeping it open during what is traditionally the slowest month of the year for room reservations. While the pier is being renovated, construction of a Marriott Courtyard Hotel will start. And by the time the project is completed in about 2 years, the old and new hotels will be connected to each other and then to the Peoria Civic Center by an elevated skywalk. That, after all, was the chief impetus for the project, to give the Civic Center a true convention hotel that will, it hopes, bring larger prestigious conventions to Peoria. But this project has not been without controversy. Gary Matthews is my guest today, and when we come back, we will discuss the project, some struggles it has endured, and what comes next. Welcome back to the Peorian. My guest today is Gary Matthews, president of EM Properties and the developer of the new downtown hotel project that will soon be getting underway. Thank you for joining us today, Gary.
You're welcome.
A month or so ago, we wondered if this project was going to die if you didn't reach a new redevelopment agreement with the city. Interestingly, you first announced this project almost 3 years ago to the day, December 8th, 2008. And if not for the recession, wouldn't it be finished by now?
Oh, definitely that. I mean, I never thought it would take 3 years, but sometimes some projects take longer than you expect.
On that day, on December 8th, I remember asking you about the recession, because the recession was getting started then. I remember asking you about the timing of it, whether or not it was a good time, and you said, it's probably a good opportunity because the recession was going to force building material costs down, and that was going to help you save costs. But that was before the banks and the bankers started turning their backs on development projects. Isn't that right?
And that was pretty global, actually,
Okay.
because the lodging industry is one of the industries that suffered the most, or the quickest. When you had a recession like that, everybody starts tightening up, with their conventions, their leisure travel and everything else. So the lodging industry usually is the first to be affected.
And you had worked on this project for a good year even before you announced it, had you not?
No, maybe 6 months.
Oh, okay.
We were doing an awful lot of renderings and what ifs and that. We had just finished up another hotel construction in East Peoria, so this was timely for us to start.
That you stuck with this for 3 years. And that you worked with the city over and over again, a couple of new redevelopment agreements, that shows your commitment to the project, especially since in this most recent redevelopment agreement, you agreed to forego the developer's fee until after it's finished. Why are you sticking to the commitment like that?
Well, I have a commitment to the community. I was born and raised in this community.
Okay.
I believe in it. I also believe that there are so many memories that I've had as a young child in the downtown of Peoria, the Block and Cools, the Pere Marquette. I remember in the Santa Claus Parade last Friday, I was there with my grandniece. Remember where I stood for the Santa Claus Parade. I think what a lot of people in this community sometimes forget is how this community has a lot of great history. I was dedicated to get this one done. And I definitely believe that Civic Center needed a convention hotel linked to it.
Because?
That's what's really in demand in this lodging industry. You have two travelers. You have the business traveler and you have the leisure traveler. And in this particular case, when you got a Civic Center that is actually almost state-of-the-art in terms of what the size of this community is, and no hotel linked directly to it, you can really take a great deal of advantage from having a quality room linked to that Civic Center. It was definitely needed.
A couple other developers had proposed smaller hotels on different parcels surrounding the Civic Center, less than full-service hotels. Why wasn't that good enough?
A couple of reasons. First of all, the Marriott Corporation is the top of the line, and they do so well with conventions and conferences. And I knew I didn't want to manage the hotel. I didn't have the wherewithal for conventions and all the other factors. And Marriott agreed, as long as it was a good size rooms, they would manage the hotel. So I had a handshake agreement for that. What I was probably not prepared for was they didn't like the mix of rooms that I had first proposed. So we changed it so we have a bigger variety of room sizes. We'll be very competitive with our room rates.
Gary, had you not stepped up when you did with this project, do you think anybody else would have? A project of this magnitude involving the Pere Marquette to preserve that grand old hotel and connect it to the Civic Center. Do you think anybody else would have stepped up?
If they did, they would have had to realize that economically it would have been more feasible to knock the building down and start over. It's going to cost twice as much to rehab the Pere Marquette than if you started all over.
And that's because?
Well, because there's so many things in the building that has to be brought up. First of all, life safety. The life safety issue now is a very big topic when you have that many floors and that many rooms. The other thing is the utilities. We have to be more efficient. We have to be a lot more efficient with the utilities, as well as what we call the wayfinding on how you get to certain areas quickly as they are. So there was a lot of challenging. We have several months and hours of meetings with the design. We still do. I already had a meeting this morning making another change for a laundry room. So it's always that way.
Hold that thought. We have to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the timeline for the project, including what it will take to do these life safety issues at the Pere Marquette. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Peorian. I'm with Gary Matthews, developer of the Hotel Pere-Mariott Project. Gary, right before we took our break, you were talking about what it's going to take to bring the Pere Marquette up to, I don't know, livable standards, I guess, for lack of a better term. Is that why it has to close for a good year while that is done?
That's a big reason why. I mean, it really wouldn't be convenient for guests to have people listening to the drilling and all the other things. We're bringing the electrical system alone is going to be double the size.
Ooh,
the
okay.
Plumbing, there isn't any guest room that won't be gutted. So it would just not be a comfortable experience to be open.
And there would be times, isn't it right, that you'd have to shut off all the power?
Oh, definitely. Even if we didn't close it, we'd have to shut it down for 2 weeks, because that's how long it would take to. We're scrapping the old electrical system and putting in a whole new one that's twice the size.
And then the plumbing. You'd have to shut it down while that was being
right.
done. So this is going to be inconvenient for travelers maybe, but it's going to be worth it in the long run.
Well, we've also shortened our time to open. We added about 6 months to the construction if we had to stay open. We also, it costs more for insurance. It's certainly, Marriott was not interested in managing the hotel as well during construction, so there was a lot of factors in that decision.
Okay. How soon will we begin to see construction activity, and what's going to be first?
Well, the first thing will be the real estate closing.
Okay. When's that going to happen?
We're hoping at the end of this month of December. And then we will start what's called the liquidation.
Okay.
That'll be, pretty controversial, I'm sure, because a lot is going. We'll have a public sales. And then after the liquidation, then we have demolition of the interior. We also will be demoing the parking deck at that time.
Okay.
The only thing we will not be demoing is the other businesses, the bar, Al's, and others on that corner. That'll stay up for 9 to 10 months.
Part of the reason for that is to give Al the chance to build his new place, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Then when you do take those buildings down from the alley to the corner,
Correct.
after that is done, that is when we'll start to see the Marriott Tower?
Yes, but now the Pere Marquette will be open then.
By then? Okay.
By then. So that's the phase-in plan. And since the Marriott full service of the Pere Marquette is 284 rooms, we're building a new tower, which is 116 rooms. So, we'll be 3/4 done as soon as we open up the pier.
Okay, so I need to make sure that I've got this correct. At first you said the pier was going to have to be closed for up to a year,
Right.
but now you're saying it's going to be less than that?
Oh, no. It'll take a
okay.
year to 14 months.
Okay. All right, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. There will be a shortage of quality hotel rooms in downtown Peoria while the pier is closed. Is there any fear that that business that uses it now will come back? Or will it come back? Or will you have to find new business?
I kind of feel like it's an opportunity for a lot of other hotels.
Okay.
I can't speak for them, I can speak for myself. In one of the hotels I own right now, I've increased my budget. I believe that this is when we get competitive with our shuttles, we get competitive with our marketing. In other words, we take advantage of the situation, so to speak, and I'm pretty sure if I was in downtown Peoria with a hotel, I'd take advantage of it.
Already the 4 Points by Sheraton, the
Yes.
former Holiday Inn City Center, they're getting some work done there, correct?
Yeah, I understand they are. That we also have the Mark Twain,
All right.
which is always doing well, but I think you always could, if you can link in another 10 or 15% of occupancy, it's great. We have the Staybridge across the street on Comp, so there's plenty.
Okay. We're going to take a break now for messages from our sponsors. But first, here is the Peorian's own Kevin Kaiser to talk about what's going on in the literary and culinary world.
Good morning, Peoria and beyond. Welcome to my little world. This week on the literary scene, we're going to focus on poetry, specifically the Poet Laureate of Illinois, Peorian Kevin Stein. Kevin was named the Poet Laureate in 2003 and is only the 4th Poet Laureate since the state created the office in 1936. Howard Austin was the state's first. His ability to write poetry was widely recognized in large part because of the speed with which he could accomplish it. For many years, he was called upon to demonstrate his talents with a male quartet named the Pawnee Four. These singers were invited to events such as conventions or banquets where the after-dinner speakers were the norm. Howard, while listening intently to the speeches, would sit on the sidelines composing poetic lyrics, more often than not with amusing content or poking good-natured fun at the speaker or his organization. Immediately following the speaker, the quartet would take their places at the dais. As the lead singer, Howard would hold his just-completed lyrics out in front of the group while they sang and harmonized the words together. This was often considered to be a stunt, assuming the words had been prepared long beforehand. But anyone attending those events would be convinced otherwise, as his piece would include a very detailed account of unpredictable events. Howard, the quartet, and his amazing instant poetry were popular for many decades. In 1962, the internationally renowned poet Carl Sandburg was named to the office, which he held until his death in 1967. I think once someone dies, they really should give up their office and just slow down in general. After Carl came Gwendolyn Brooks, who served from 1968 to 2000. In the world of poetry, she's right up there with Frost, Eliot, Pound, and Hughes, in my opinion. And that takes us to Kevin Stein, who's a brilliant and down-to-earth modern poet. You can see his original work in the first issue of the Peorian, as well as in the upcoming 3rd issue. Some of his books include A Circus of Want, Bruised Paradise, Chance Ransom, American Roses, and his most recent work, Sufficiency of the Actual. You can find his books locally and at Barnes & Noble. And now a new segment called I Don't Know How I Feel About That, where I talk about literary news that makes me uneasy. HBO has signed a deal with the estate of William Faulkner that gives them the right to 19 of Faulkner's novels and 125 short stories. Now, I'm a Faulkner fanatic, and in fact, 2008 was the year of Faulkner in my world. so I'm always excited to hear about adaptations. But there are some touchy issues in his work. Incest. So when I heard of this deal, I truly thought, I don't know how I feel about that, but we'll keep our fingers crossed. That's all from my little world. Now leave.
Welcome back to the Peorian. We're talking about the Pere Marquette Marriott Hotel Project with the developer, Gary Matthews, president of EM Properties. Gary, let's talk a little bit about the changes that we're going to see in the Pere Marquette. When people walk into the Pere Marquette a year and a half from now, is it going to look anything like it does now?
Not at all. We are maintaining the historical legacy, though.
Okay.
We are obligated to do that because of the status with historical tax credits.
Okay.
But the interior, we don't really plan to do much other than add a great deal of color and light.
Well, it needs that.
It needs.
And the lobby, the check-in area, that's not going to be where it is now either?
No, from the Main Street entrance that exists now, when you come in from there, you'll go immediately to your right to check-in pods, we call it.
Okay.
And then you'll be able to go around behind that and enter into the elevators from there if you wish to go directly to your room. Or you can exit from there into the lobby below the stairs and go to your left, let's say, and there will be a wide open, large area of a restaurant and a bar
Okay.
that we hope to be able to announce a name for real soon.
That'll be local bar, though, a local restaurant.
That will be a Marriott restaurant.
Okay. By that you mean not a chain, but Marriott will manage it, or what?
Oh yeah, we're obligated to be a full-service hotel.
Okay.
We must have a 3-meal restaurant, room service. We must have certain things that make it a full service, like pool, spa, so on.
Oh, so we're going to have a pool down there now?
Not in the pier, but the adjacent building
Okay.
that is linked to it. Yes, there'll be a what we call a lap pool.
I wanted to ask you, too, about the skywalk. A skywalk is good enough to consider the hotels attached to the Civic Center? That makes it attached because people do not have to go outside to get from one to the other?
Exactly. It's environmentally controlled, but I think what's interesting is in the Main Street there'll be 3 entrances. The one that exists now into the Pere Marquette.
Okay.
Another one which is approximately where the alley is now. You will enter in there, and then you into a 2-stop elevator that will take you up to either the courtyard or up to the elevated walkway.
Okay.
And then you can walk from that location, from that elevated walkway, to the deck and then on to the Civic Center.
How large?
And not be outdoors.
Well, how large will the skywalk be? How many people will be able to pass
Oh,
through at once?
it's I think the width of it's right now is 6 feet.
Okay.
So, quite a few.
And the main restaurant, the three meals a day restaurant, is going to be in the older part.
Right.
Do you anticipate other development on the exterior
Yes.
going around the corner that could include restaurants and?
We have 15,500 square feet on Monroe,
Okay.
which would house actually 3 large restaurants.
So this is storefront.
Storefront restaurants right on Monroe.
Okay. Any idea who that might be?
Can't
yet?
tell you that or I'd have to kill you.
But they'll be high quality, I assume.
Absolutely.
And possible other retail?
There is a possibility of other retail. We've had some, strikingly some pretty good interest locally there.
Okay.
Because, I think one of the things that most people might not realize until they actually witness is the fact that we have 2 types of guests here. We have the leisure as well as we have the business traveler. Plus, I know when I travel to a convention, a hotel convention, and I like to go to a lot of them with my wife, she doesn't go to the convention, she goes somewhere else. So she's curious about retail and any other place. That's why I'm excited about the museum. I think that's a great,
I was going to ask you about that. A good synergy there at the museum? Or?
excellent.
So it has had some controversy. Some people don't think that the city should be involved with this. Other developers think the city is involved too much with this. What is your take on that? Without the city's help, it would not be happening, correct?
That's exactly true. It's a lot easier for a lot of projects to be developed in much larger communities. I've been in this community for many years, and the one thing that I had discovered when I was in East Peoria doing development is you must have incentives. If you don't have incentives, you can't make the deal work.
Okay. Well, I think Peoria is going to be excited in a couple of years when they see it coming to fruition finally.
I hope that's true.
Gary, thank you for being our
Thank
guest
you.
today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And thank you for joining us as well. And you can join us every Sunday at 8 a.m. here on WHOI. And remember, you can see today's episode in its entirety on our website, thepeorian.com. Have a good week.
Música